Hey guys, so I wanted to talk about something that's very near and dear to me, and I would not be here on this earth had it have gone any other way. So I'd just like to share it with you guys and hope it can be some sort of encouragement to somebody. I know every time that I tell somebody, it encourages me. So if nothing else, I should feel grateful when I go to sleep tonight. So the story is basically of when I fell off of a cliff and found life. Pardon me. It's today's beef. So it was over 2 years ago now. It was in New Zealand, and it was at Fatipu Beach. And I was with my good friend Silas. He's I think he's 20. I think he's 26 now, but a couple years younger than me. Nice, really nice guy, German lad, and it was just me and him. And I'd been in New Zealand for 4 months or so, and he'd been there for about three and a half months or so. And we took a day trip out, just me and him, to Fatipu Beach, where we had an awesome day. He had his GoPro, so we were making little videos and just exploring this new beach, place we'd never been to in our lives. So it was like, when you go and see the sand just for miles almost, it was a euphoric experience for the first time. So it was cool, and it was just me and him to share it with, and it was a really nice day. And I remember towards the end of the day, we were at these caves, or there was a sign for a caves or something like that. I can't remember if Silas maybe looked it up on his phone. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure he said, "Do you want to go to see the caves?" And I was like, "Yeah." So off we went to go and see the caves, and it was maybe a 15-minute walk and a little bit of a climb. So we ended up maybe 5 or 6 meters above ground level at the caves, but didn't really think anything of it. We had a little look in the cave. It was pretty cool. I remember there was loads of rocks balanced on top of each other. I remember seeing that. That was quite cool. And then we just decided the sun was setting, so we just decided to follow the sunset round basically, and we began to sort of climb along the side of the cliff, following the cliff path along. And then we've got to a certain spot, and we've looked up, and there was a big ledge, similar to the size of a mattress or something like that. It was big enough for us both to sit on there, quite weighty, and there was a few small steps up to it, almost like a climbing wall. But yeah, I remember we looked up, and it was kind of like maybe 6 or 7 meters climb up, and I remember looking up, and something in my spirit was like, it was like a fear reaction, and me being me, and my ego shrugged it off. Silas at the same time has asked me, as we've looked up, we've both looked up, and he said, "Do you fancy it, bro?" in his sweet German accent. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." So we climbed up to the top, sat there, and we ended up filming with his GoPro the sunset. I think we sat there for 30 minutes or so, but just towards the end, I stood up, and I kind of knew we was kind of high, but I didn't quite realise how high exactly we was. So when I looked down, I saw that we were probably 20 meters, maybe 18 meters up the side of a cliff. And again, it was kind of like a fear emotion, but at the same time, it was it was like, it was out of this world. It wasn't a normal response, but it was just like, my spirit, my soul, it just told me to pray. I don't know why, because I wasn't really much, I wasn't really into praying or anything like that at the time. I just automatically, it was like my spirit just told me to just pray. So I looked down and I just said a prayer. I just said, Lord, please look after me and Silas. And I remember feeling this comfort that I can't explain it really. Words wouldn't do it justice, but it was a warm yet peaceful feeling throughout my whole body. Almost like I was being electrified, but in almost like a pleasurable way. Kind of, it was just it was just crazy. And I remember sort of, feeling this intense feeling straight after I said this prayer. And I remember thinking, wow, like, this is what people have waited their whole lives for, I've just felt God's touch. And I thought, I remember thinking I can, people have waited their whole lives for this and not felt this, so I could happily die right now, today, and I still had this immense feeling of calmness. And, as I've sort of thought that I could happily die right now, today, Silas has just gone to me and he's gone, shall we go, because the sun was setting and it was about to get starting to get dark, so we didn't want to be up the side of this cliff when it was getting dark. So he then went, and there was a big, massive boulder about that big, and we were still sat on the ledge. He stood up and put one hand on this boulder. He then stepped down onto two smaller rocks that were waiting there, and I came along. I put two hands on that same boulder, and you better believe it, it just snapped clean straight off of the cliff, and I was sort of left there kind of like this, and it all went slow motion. I knew I was going to fall, but it just, it was all kind of, everything sped up, my adrenaline kicked in, and, it might sound bad, but I looked down at Silas, and as I say, I was losing momentum, and I knew I was going to fall. Silas was there with his back turned, and this is honestly what I thought. I'm not proud of it, but I did. And I looked at Silas and I thought, you look comfy. And I just thought in my head, no, can't do that. So I jumped over Silas. So I had to jump this high, above waist high. So I guess in my mind, I hoped that I could, jump and like style it out and be like Mission Impossible and slide down this cliff. But no, I wasn't quite as lucky as that. I actually went flying through the air, and I don't remember hitting my face, but I went flying through the air like this and hit my face about 5 meters, 6 meters, said straight into my face on the side of a cliff. So I went bang like that into the side of a cliff. You can see I've got a few little war wounds. I flipped over onto my back, and I have my lucky backpack on, and I don't remember hitting my head, but I do remember the rest of it, and it was like I was out of my body watching myself, but I was paralysed, falling down the side of this cliff. And as I was going, it was just like I was watching my body, and I knew, this is it, and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything but fall down the side of this cliff. And I must have been saying some prayers then as well, because as I've fallen another 7 or 8, maybe even 10 meters down the side of this cliff, I've gone over the cliff edge, and where I should have fallen another 5 to 6 meters to the floor, and I would have had the impact of the whole 18, 20 meters height that I fell from. And yeah, as I say, I went off the lip of this cliff, and that was the last Silas saw of me. But I was caught straight away like a baby in a diaper, perfectly caught in this bush that was grown on the side of this cliff on a beach. You know, I don't know how often you see bushes on cliffs and the side of the beach, but I don't often see them that much, not that were big enough to catch me. And it caught me like a sling. It literally caught me. It was like an angel picked me up and plucked me into that bush. Yeah, it just you know, first thing I done, you know, like I said, it was a natural thing. When I looked down, I just said this prayer of protection. Again, it sort of happened when I came back into my body and I was caught in this bush. It was like I had a ringing straight back into my body. But I just remember the first thing I did was look up to the sky and just went, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it was the most sincere thank you that I ever given in my life. And it was like it was my spirit, you know. It was like, I don't know what happened in those moments. I don't know if I died or exactly what happened, but I know it was a miracle. And as I say, I just sort of came back into my body. My consciousness just came back with a ringing, and the first thing I heard was Silas, and I heard the pain and emotion in his voice, because all he's seen is his friend just fall over his head and then fall off the side of a cliff. He didn't see the bush there. He would have just seen me go. So it must have been, I know it traumatized him a bit, bless him, but first thing he did, he shouted my nickname, which is Jazza, and he shouted, Jazza! With such, yeah, I'll never forget the emotion he put into it. And I just remember I was, you know, sort of caught in this bush. You know, I couldn't even move properly, and you know, I was a little bit battered as I had just fallen off of a cliff. But you know, at first he shouted my name, and I just said, I'm all right. And he said, wait there, I'm coming to get you. And within 15 seconds or so, he got down that cliff pretty quick. And by the time he was at the bush, I was starting to make my way out towards him. And he came and met me 3/4 of the way in and pulled me out. And I had a cut here, and I think I had a cut there. This is my good finger, this is my bad, but at the time my bad finger was like that. So I thought, right, I've broke my little finger, I've got a little bit of a cut. I chipped my front tooth as well. And I thought, okay, that's a miracle, you know. I've just fallen off the side of a cliff and I can still walk, you know. But Silas sort of checked me down, and I think he even tried to thought about ringing the ambulance, and there was no signal. So we ended up having to walk back to his car, going back up and down the cliffside and all of this stuff. Just as it was getting dark, I think it was even dark by the time we arrived at his car. It was just about dark, or just nearing dark. And yeah, basically it was a half an hour walk back to his car, and then he took me to a doctor's surgery, but it was like 8:30 at night, so it was shut. So then it was another hour drive back to Auckland Main Hospital. So about an hour and a half after falling off the cliff, I strolled into A&E like a zombie, blood all over me, and but I was so unbelievably humbled, I guess you could say, the whole time. It was very surreal. But yeah, took me to the hospital and left me there for a little bit. I was there for 4.5 hours, and then I was back out, and somebody else had actually fallen off of a cliff in a similar place the same day. I don't know exactly the details, but the doctor that was looking after me told me that I am much more luckier than the other person. So yeah, I mean, that's just crazy to think of, that two people fell off a cliff at the beach that day. And you know, I hope the other guy's fine, but I had a few little wounds, and it turned out that this was actually a broken bone. It was cartilage, muscle cartilage. So, you know, people always say to me, oh, well, your prayer didn't work very well, did it, mate? You know, and I have to disagree with them, because I feel like I was always going to fall off of that cliff, but I wasn't always going to say that prayer. If I hadn't have said that prayer, it could have been completely different. You know, if that bush wasn't there to catch me, I'd be paralysed or dead now. That's the fact of the matter. But even if I'd have hit my head more on the top, the cranium or something, maybe I could have dented my head and be brain damaged for life. But I just went into the side there, flipped over, and I had my lucky backpack on, so I didn't scratch my back at all. Otherwise my back would have been all scratched up. Had I have, even bounced a different way, I would have missed this bush. The bush was about 2 meters wide and 4 meters in length. So if I'd have bounced any other way, there would have been no bush there to catch me. If I was a little bit heavier, this was only like a I'm trying to think what sort of bush accurately describes it, but it's just a normal bit of shrubbery, it was almost like brambles kind of. And if I was any heavier, I would have just gone straight through them, and I would have had a bit of a cushioned fall, but I would have still had a fall of about 5-6 meters to sand, rocks, and I still would have had quite a lot of the impact of the 20-meter fall, really. And if I was going any faster, I would have just gone off, because I actually went over a lip of the cliff. So I actually went and sort of jumped kind of off of the cliff, if you will, as I fell. Done a bit of a bump and just landed safely in this bush. That's why I say it was like an angel picked me up, plucked me and put me into this bush. But just an amazing story, amazing thing to have done to me, and it's completely changed my life. As I say, I fell off a cliff and I should have died, but I actually ended up finding life and life abundantly. And many things have changed since then. I've started the Rose Knight Foundation, and I've met many people. I've met Jesus Christ, and that's not even the story of how I met Jesus Christ. That is for another video. But I hope this message has been of an inspiration to you. As I say, there's multiple ways that I could have died and should have died, and I didn't. That rock was always going to break, but was I always going to say the prayer? I don't know. And if I didn't say that prayer, how differently could it have gone? Because essentially I fell from a cliff, and I didn't break a single bone, and Silas wasn't harmed at all either, and that was my prayer of protection over me and Silas. So I fell from a cliff, and I've got a couple of scars. Got this here and a little bit on my nose and a bit of a wonky finger, but I've also got a bucket load of faith and a real cool story. Silas, well, he wasn't harmed at all. He a little bit traumatized from what he witnessed, but I think that just bonded our relationship closer together, So had I have chosen what my flesh had wanted instead of my spirit, I would have fallen into Silas. I would have taken the greedy route that my mind went to, you know. But it was almost like my spirit said no, and I just jumped. And had I not have done that, and I'd have fallen into Silas, as I mentioned earlier, there was no signal where we was, and we were quite far away from the public, the car park, and we'd been kind of walking about for a little while. So had we both fallen down and seriously injured ourselves, there would have been no signal to ring an ambulance, and we would have potentially have both been there all night, and maybe even worse. But because I sort of took the selfish route and just thought I can't fall on Silas, even though it all happened so quickly, there wasn't even much of these thoughts to be done. It just happened. But yeah, I believe if it had gone another way, if I had thought more about myself than of Silas, and yeah, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't be here to tell this tale now. Maybe I wouldn't be able to walk or even just touch my face, which is enough to bring me to tears. So thank you for listening to this, if you have listened to this, and I hope this story can encourage you. It's my testimony of life, a lot's happened since then, and a lot's happened before then, but I don't believe I ever started living until the day I fell from a cliff.